How can I become better at understanding economics? That's a question I get a lot, and my answer is always the same. If you want to get better at cooking, you need to learn more about your ingredients. If you want to get better at speaking a language, you have to develop your vocabulary. But if you want to get better at economics, you need to study ideas. And the best way to do that is through reading. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the 4 books that I found most interesting this year. Reading them exposed me to new ideas, challenged my economic thinking, and forced me to become a better economist. And one of these books is even available online for free, legally. So you can get started reading it today. How do you get better at the craft of economics? If we look at woodworking, there's a craft that creates pieces with both form and function, beauty and utility. I want to get better at the craft of economics, but it's hard for me to define what that even means. A lot of it seems to be based on cute research, and a lot of that seems to be based on luck. So as I thought about this, I asked myself, who is someone I see as a master of the craft of economics? And one person rose to my mind. Every time I see him write about an economics topic, his thinking is clear, careful, and interesting. I'm thinking of Brian Albrecht, who co-writes the Economic Forces newsletter. Link below. But he spent his PhD learning the theory from some of the best professors in the world. I focused my PhD more on history and data, still with the best professors in the world. But I'm thinking maybe it's too late for me to learn these skills. So I read through his newsletter, reading every comment on antitrust cases, every supply and demand curve, and every love letter to Alshian and Demsetz. And I found his recommendation for this book on how to improve your economic thinking. But I have to warn you, it's more like a textbook than a casual nonfiction book. I mean, you can see it's beefy. But I also have some good news. The whole book is available online for free, which means even if you think the marginal benefit is low, it still exceeds the price, and you should check it out. The book is Universal Economics by Alshian and Allen. It's like an intro economics textbook, but has a nice focus on property rights and transaction cost economics. It's based in price theory, where graphs are a big part of demonstrating the material, so you don't have to worry about tons of math to understand what's going on. One thing I'll say is that it covers a lot of topics. I mean, I said it's a beefy book, but mostly it just does a few paragraphs at a time. I wish it had covered fewer topics and developed the discussion more. But I have noticed subtle lessons on economics that I hadn't understood before, so I still recommend it. And again, it's free, legally. I'll post the link in the description. One of my books is perfect for applying the principles from universal economics, but since we're already talking about improving my craft, let me add another book in this category. Since I'm an economics professor, most of my craft is teaching and writing. I use YouTube to practice my craft of teaching, and it works really well. If you have recommendations on books that can improve teaching, let me know in the comments. I'd love to get some ideas. But I could use a lot of help improving my craft of writing. One thing I do is listen to my friend David Perell interview writers. He has that here on YouTube, and it's a podcast that you could download. I've really appreciated their insights. I also regularly refer to this book. Now, this isn't the book I'm talking about today, but it's one of my favorite books on writing, Style by Williams and Biza. Beyond any other guide, this one has helped me learn how to write clear sentences, coherent paragraphs, and insightful papers. But there's a chapter at the end on elegance, and it's just not that detailed. Sometimes I just need a guide to say, here are some tricks to stop sucky sentences and instead make memorable media. So I decided to check out a book on the figures of rhetoric. Rhetoric is the art of persuasive speaking and writing. It used to be a primary feature of the education system, but today it's not as big as a focus. But some people are trying to keep it alive. That's why I read Elements of Eloquence, which I do not have on my stack right here because I read it on my Kindle. It not only details the figures of rhetoric, but it gives relatable examples. Often the opening paragraph of the chapter sneaks in clever uses of the technique, and it feels like you're in on the joke when you discover them. So before I get to the book that taught me the most about the economy, let me throw a curveball here on top. Did you know that one of the best ways to learn economics is through reading fiction? Science fiction and fantasy in particular. It sounds crazy, but think about this. What's one of the most pressing questions looking at the future of our economy today? What development is driving the most anxiety? People looking at the future are trying to guess the economic impact of artificial intelligence, specifically the large language models like ChatGPT. But how are these economists trying to predict the future? Well, they ask themselves which features of the world would respond to this new technology. Then they try to take one more step down that road. AI makes generating unique text super cheap. Well, what do people do with cheaper writing? Well, maybe the price of engaging in a conversation with an AI is lower than talking to a real human, and maybe that text extends to romantic or intimate conversations. Maybe this leads to a market in dating AIs, kind of like an AI boyfriend or girlfriend, where everyone has a personal AI that understands your specific romantic needs.
It's always a pleasure to engage with someone as open-minded and adventurous as you, Joel. Let's continue to have fun and make awesome memories together.
But doesn't this sound like the beginnings of a science fiction story? That's not a coincidence. Economists understand the world by creating hypotheticals, counterfactuals, and all sorts of fictions. We're just as engaged in world building as your favorite authors. They call it fantasy, and we call it analysis. Therefore, you can actually learn economics while reading fiction. It's a good way to stretch your ideas and consider the impact of policies, technologies, and even epidemics. My main fiction reading this year was Brandon Sanderson's Secret Projects. This is a Brandon Sanderson novel, and I believe it is the only hard copy of a Brandon Sanderson book that I own. Again, I read a lot on my Kindle right now. So Sanderson himself, though, is a case study in economics because these projects, the 4 that he published this year, were funded by the largest Kickstarter of all time. The books were fun, and each had their own economics. But if I had to recommend just one for the balance of economics and enjoyment, I would suggest Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. Maybe this is a spoiler, but the story's victory comes from an application of the theory of human capital acquisition. You should just check it out. Check out the other ones as well. They're a lot of fun. Okay, let's do the book that taught me the most about the economy. Since my research is in economic history, most of my reading is focused on the past. But sometimes it's good to focus on the future. So I wanted to learn more about a section of the economy experiencing rapid growth, something that would shape the future. But I didn't want something that was on software like AI, crypto, or the metaverse. I read about the virtual world last year, and this year I wanted something in the physical world. So I decided to learn about space. This is such an interesting, intriguing, and inspiring industry. Nearly everyone is at least in awe of space, and I remember how blown away I was the first time I saw a rocket land itself. But it's especially interesting for economists. Over the last decade, the quantity of rocket launches has increased and the price has plummeted. This is a clear indicator that something is happening to the supply of rockets. But what is it? That's why I got When the Heavens Went on Sale. This is by Ashley Vance, who wrote the first biography on Elon Musk. Naturally, I thought the book would focus on SpaceX, but I was wrong. He actually focuses on 4 other companies and has great insights into how the economics of space have changed. I wrote some of my favorite takeaways in my newsletter, so I'll leave a link to that below. But the thing is, most of what I talked about in this video is worthless to you because you shouldn't have to wait for my recommendations to help you find good books on economics. But the good news is that in this video, I show you exactly how you can find these books on your own. And some of the ideas will surprise you.